Hello, everyone. A formal welcome to this session on Fireside Chat with Sunit Bose, who is the Director of Engineering at BharatPay. BharatPay needs no introduction. It's one of the top payment companies in India, competing with top competitors. The theme for the event is how to grow your career as a leader, QA manager or leader. My name is Ashutosh. I am the head of growth and co-founder of the Test Tribe. Uh, I have about 15 years of experience, 12 years as tester, and 3 years into marketing. We're doing this event in collaboration with BrowserStack, and we want to give them a huge shout out. They are our exclusive sponsor for all our community events and premium sponsor for all our conferences. It's been due to BrowserStack's great support that we've been able to do this kind of event at this scale really well, and we want to keep doing this continuously. Coming to Sunit's been a dear friend, and he's has about a 1.5 decades of experience in testing now, and he's worked with some of the marquee companies in the country like Snapdeal, Paytm, Times Internet, uh, Extra Marks to name a few. Currently, he's a director of engineering at BharatPay, and he's a very passionate tester in general. So, if you speak with him, he's very passionate about the craft, and he's not a tester by accident. He's a tester by design. He's a tester by choice in general. So, without further ado, I like to call today's guest and my very dear friend Sunit on stage. Hi, Sunit, you're on stage.
Hi, hi Ashish. Hi everyone.
Yeah. So, Sunit, thank you so much for doing this, and really grateful and humble to have you here. We'll get straight into business, and we have a lot of people here. We're close to 50, 60 people attending it already, and once the session progresses, we'll see more people coming in. So, let's get straight into business. But before we get there, folks, we have some pre-collected questions which we'll ask Sunit. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A tab. I'll try my level best to take as many audience questions as possible so that this is more of a two-way discussion and not just a one-way discussion there. So with that, let me start with the first question today. Uh, Sunit, in your 14 years of experience, almost 1.5 decades now, what are the biggest changes you've seen in the QA field? Of course, the tech has evolved and a lot of it has evolved, but beyond tech, what are the biggest changes you have seen? And how these changes have has impacted the role of a QA manager slash leader?
That's a very good question. First of all, I'll just start with thanking you and Test Tribe for giving me this opportunity to present my views. And it's great to see this huge turnout here. This is my first live podcast, guys, and I hope you guys have fun while we're at it. Cool. So I'll come back to the question. Yeah, so there has been a lot of changes. I mean, everyone has seen them. Anyone who has been in the industry for about I don't know, five plus years or so, they might have seen different kinds sort of changes. People who have kept themselves in the industry for about 20, 25 years, they have seen different sort of changes. Different tech stack to test, right? I started off as a mobile application tester. And when I was testing mobile applications, I was actually testing Nokia phones and Nokia applications.
Yeah.
And Symbian OS was the the thing at the time of mobile applications, and it was supposed to break the internet, and everything was built around
Hmm.
that particular mentality in mobile applications. Now, what happened was there was a big shift, as we all know, that came was iOS. There was an advent of iOS, and that kind of broke the internet and entire user experience and the entire journey of a mobile application user, right, or a mobile user itself. Until Symbian, it was all about keypads and
Yeah.
touchpads and styluses. But when iOS came into the picture, they brought a different user touch point or user experience altogether, right? So obviously, with that change, a lot of things changed. The way testers used to think about the application. I took a long time to grapple with the situation that how do I actually use this application or use this phone itself, because there are no buttons, there are no physical buttons apart from the one in the center, and there was no physical buttons available on the phone. So while testing the application, I had to think of a lot of brainstorm on a lot of things on myself. So there was a lot of change in my life that happened. Um, the mobile industry kind of progressed from there. It went on to we saw Android, then we saw pads, iPads, like larger form factors, and like the smart TVs came into the picture, and a lot of things changed there. And the testing teams that were, testing all these applications, or validating all these applications for their users, their mindset kind of shifted from only being functional testers to also, gatekeepers of UI UX of the experience of the customer as well. Because there was no profile as such at that point in time. If you remember, there were business analysts and there were testers, and then there was clients. These are the three people who used to test it, right?
Correct, correct,
There was no user experience guy. There was a designer in organizations, but there was no UX or UI guy who used to check against a set of checklists. So tester used to. So there was a shift that came, right? Being from stopping from being just a tester or functional tester to also evaluating the UI aspects or the UX aspects. How many tabs does it take for a user to fulfill his desired action?
correct,
All
correct.
those questions came into mind. They actually got converted into test cases. Those test cases got stolen out of that of our test suite, and they went into the straight into the kitty of a UX developer or a UX expert. But these were the things that we actually started doing. But then there were more changes that happened, and similarly, compliance started happening. App Store released their own guidelines. So we were from just being functional testers, we also needed to understand compliance of the
Correct.
build. Right. I remember I was I had all the App Store guidelines, compliance guidelines for
Hmm.
build rejection at my fingertips at the point in time. At that point in time, so for App Store or for Google Play Store, I used to
Hmm.
remember all these compliance guidelines, and I made sure that all these compliance guidelines were fulfilled before the release happened
Hmm.
for production.
Hmm.
Similarly, from UX, things went on to API. Business logics moved back to the back end.
Correct.
The backend services changed. So, if there is a point I'm trying to make is there has been a lot of shift within a span of 5 years, every
Hmm.
5 years,
Hmm.
from what people test, what
Hmm.
they believe they are testing,
Hmm.
how they're testing it, how they're scoping their tests,
Hmm.
what is their end customer in role in their mind. All of that has changed, and what entices me more and more about this field is that this 5 year gap is getting reduced.
Correct.
Now, if this there was a 5 year gap earlier, now that it's probably going down to 3 years. Now it will go down to 2 years maybe. See, with the AI ML coming into play, and not just AI ML, I would say AI ML still has a lot of ground to cover in testing domain for people to actually start adopting it full time, right? But automation is kind of getting away, and automation will not cease to exist, but general UI UX cases to automate, end-to-end test cases to automate and regress. I see a lot of companies even getting diminished as a part of that change. Right. Recently, what we did here at Bharat Pay was we identified a problem, and the problem was that we had to integrate with a lot of lending partners, like
Hmm.
upcoming lending partners, big lending partners like ABFL or likes of Unity Bank, right? And the challenge that we faced was that every time they integrated, their APIs were different and our platform was different. Right, the developers had to write custom code for every integration, and then the QA had to run all those test cases again and again. So we broke down that problem and we automated only the data validation part. So it doesn't matter where the data is coming from, which API request it is coming from. We automate the data validation part.
God.
We did not automate any UI UX cases. We did not
Yeah.
automate any API calls, and that's how we did it. And that kind of reduced our regression efforts by around 80-90%.
Hmm.
Only that particular bit that we automated our tests for.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that yes, there has been a huge change, and what is more enticing is that the time gap of those changes or those shifts in the industry is reducing, and that's what keeps me enticing.
Got it. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. There are a lot of audience questions coming in, Sunit, and I'll try and take as many as possible. But there are some fundamental questions which we need to discuss before we take audience questions also. Okay. Now, uh, my point is, all this tech is changing around us. Like it will keep changing. The time will keep shrinking it. Right.
Yep.
How does the role of a QA leader gets impacted due to the changes and due to the speed of the changes, the shrinking time? So how does the role changes around all this? How does the role evolve around all these changes and the speed of change?
Right. There's another change in my mindset that has happened in the last 2 years or 2.5 years in Bharat, right?
Hmm.
And the role and the mindset change that has happened in my role or for me is that I've stopped calling QA managers my QA managers QA managers. I've started calling them as engineering managers,
Hmm.
right? Uh, Engineering managers with a different agenda. That's it, right? Quality is still a tech agenda.
Hmm.
Quality engineering is still a tech agenda. It is not a product agenda. It is not
Correct.
a different vertical, right? We stop calling ourselves as QA managers for that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this particular change, what happened was, or this shift that happened in our industry.
No worries. Folks, both of us are in the same office in different rooms, and the light is gone here. So what we'll do is, uh, by the time the genset gets on, we'll switch off our videos and start this. We'll keep this continuing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So please go ahead.
Yeah. So, with this little shift that has happened in just using the right designations for my team, what actually has happened here is that people have started recognizing that their role is far more than just managing the quality engineering agendas,
Got it.
right? Just they don't only are they're not only responsible for test case validation or test case
Hmm.
reviews or scoping
Hmm.
of tasks or giving
Hmm.
estimates for their QA members or reviewing their
Hmm.
estimates or tracking
Hmm.
tracking tasks to closure and seeing whether Jira was followed or not or the compliance had happened or not. But they also are now they are more motivated and pushed towards alerting and monitoring of the system after release, understanding what is going live, taking the accountability back to the developer. Okay, these are the things that are not, these are the files that are not impacting anything in the Jira tickets that you have shared, and there are additional
Hmm.
files. Making sure the system, not just the system, but the tech process also, or the dev code flow also works properly,
I get your point. Yeah.
right? Right. So that's the change in a QA leadership. So what I've seen and I've done in the past is that I was a QA manager in Paytm and ran out. These were the only KRAs that I had, right? Managing a team
Got
of
it.
20 people and boasting about it also, maybe, and in
Huh.
the interviews that I manage 20 people or 10 people or whatever. But then also taking care of releases. These are all the things that people used to say, and
I get a
I don't
point.
know.
No, I get
Yeah.
a point in the sense that it has to move beyond what we have been thinking of for QA as what QA does. It has to be a larger tech mindset which solves tech problems for
Yes.
organizations. Right? It has to be at the
Yes.
tech
More importantly, business metrics.
business mindset,
You
of
want
course,
to
100%.
be called. You want to be called yourself, or you want to move up to your scale to a business leader, right? There is no such thing as leader. There is a business leader, or there is no, or there are just people who are contributing individually.
Got it.
So if you want to
Which
be in that kitty, you will have to find out ways to move those business metrics via your team.
got it. So tell us about uh, of course this is important, but this is a given question. But tell us on your understanding how important it is for QA leaders to understand the business impact of their work, and if they don't have that mindset, how can they cultivate that mindset of measuring the business impact of their work and showcasing it to their leadership? While we say that, of course, they should have the tech mindset, and tech mindset is still acquirable because it's tangible skills, right? You can learn, you can
Yes.
create documents, you can leave videos. But
Yes.
having this business approach is a mindset change. While we say
Yes.
we should have it, it's very difficult to have it. If we have to give pointers to people that how to cultivate a business mindset as a QA leader and how to demonstrate your team's value in business terms, what approach they can take and how can they start building that mindset?
Well, that's a very good question, and that's a very good question, and that's very close to my heart. And I've been pressing on this during discussions in different events that I've had and in the different leadership conversations that I have. So the only way that I've seen not just QA leaders, even individual contributors that can develop business leadership or business impact analysis of their work is have more access and visibility to the business goals of the organization and align themselves to that. How they can, let's say, individual contributor do it, they straight away ask the question to a product manager or a business analyst, okay, these are the tasks that I'm doing. What is the business impact that you're trying to drive? With? Is it going to reduce CAC? Is it going to reduce customer turnaround time? Is it going to reduce escalations, customer escalations? These are pure business metrics, right? There could be a scenario where you will be picking up tech debts, right? But those tech debts would be actually serving some business metric. For example, you're improving your Kafka cluster queue management. Why are you doing it? What is the problem statement you're trying to solve? And when you look deeper into that, and then you automatically get into that understanding of the business impact that your task is going to deliver, no matter how minuscule it is.
Correct.
So generally, what I've seen, uh, even in my experience, is that when I ask this question to a lot of leaders, right, especially during focals, I know it might not sound funny, but it is that whenever I ask that question, that what is that impact that you've delivered in the past 1 year,
Hmm.
most people end up writing a list of projects
Correct.
that they delivered, right? And entering number of bugs that they have prevented or
Hmm.
automation that they have done. Or but what is that one thing? If I ask you, Ashutosh, right now, what is that one business metric that you will move with 80 or 90% test coverage,
Correct. I get your point. Yeah. Hmm.
right? And most of the people don't have answers to that, even during hiring of leadership that I do. And the straightforward metric that impacts it is GTM. It reduces your go-to market. If you have written that automation scripts or the execution perfectly, it
Hmm.
definitely impacts your GTM. And that is a big business metric to move. People are
Got it.
not aware because they're not asking these questions to their peers or stakeholders.
Got
Start
it.
asking those questions now, not just functional level questions, not just what is required by the client or the business owner or the business analyst. Start asking these questions. Gain more understanding of the business with
Got
these questions.
it. I have a very interesting question, and I believe, and I have a very strong opinion on this, but I don't want to put my opinion here, and I want to hear yours. This is from Nirjar, who is a QA at Upgrad, and Upgrad again is a marquee company in this country. Do you think QA managers should keep their hands dirty in testing products, or just managing people and just saying to management this feature is complete? So it's like you say, when you become a leader, you start moving away from the ground, right? And you start managing people. You become a people's manager rather than a tech manager. So what's your take on this question? This is again a very close question.
That's
Question
yeah.
close
I
to
mean,
yours too, I believe. Yeah.
so this question actually again is a very again. Thanks for asking this question, Nirjar. And I have actually been on both sides of the coin, right? And why I'm saying that to you is because when I got promoted as a QA manager in Paytm, I was working there as a senior tech lead, and then I
Correct.
got promoted as a QA manager in 6 7 months time, and then all of a sudden I had reporting of about 30 40 people, from 10 to like 40 people at once, and I just had no idea how to deal with that situation of my situation of becoming a QA manager and what is expected of out of me. That is another big leadership gap that is there in the industry, though, right? But let's talk about the question first. So, um, I have been actually in both sides of the coin. One where I was a QA manager and I was actually managing day in day out activities. Like I had Scrum starting from 10 a.m. in the morning, and then they ended up at 2 o'clock in the evening, right? Like afternoon. And then I had very little to less time to actually manage the team's requirements or blockers or any other activity, right? So my working style used to be like I used to run around in office,
Hmm.
taking care of everyone's scrum.
Hmm.
These 40 people were broken down into several different pods, like 7 8 pods, right?
Hmm.
And these 7 8 pods had like 4 8 7 8 different scrums, and I used to run around in the office like anything. I had to make sure that I'm having context of all these scrums and gaining access to what build is going, making a QA UAT before a UAT actually happens, so that I stayed in touch with what is going on, what changes, what happens if someone asks me, and what is going on in the application. And that is where my manager at the time he came in and he said that I don't want you to answer all the questions for me
Yeah.
whenever I ask them. That is not what I want from you.
Hmm.
but that does not mean that you don't have them or the means to have them.
Correct. I get a point.
That is the
Yeah.
only thing he said to me, and then that clicked to me. And then I said that okay, let's wind down a bit. Let's not have go myself into the QA scrums every day. Let's have a weekly scrum with the team, and then move from there. And you can still be in touch with the on ground activities. You can still go through Jira's what is happening. You can do your own internal audits, right? So you can be a people manager and a tech manager. I strongly believe that is possible. Right? You just have to manage your time and your strategy to lead your team. If you can't do that, maybe you go and talk to your peers who are probably doing it well, but don't keep it to yourself. Go and talk to people who are actually you think are doing well or might have good ideas about it. But yeah, so in technology, there is no such thing as just a people manager. Otherwise, you are not a tech manager, matlab, tech
Yeah,
firm. Mein.
in general also, I think in any profession, just being a people manager will not help you grow as a leader in that sense. You should have that hands dirty. That's for sure.
Yep.
Okay. This is a question again. This is a very moot question, which comes very often, and all of us have limited view on this. But from your view, okay, compared with other other managers, like example, dev managers, dev leads, QA managers or leads for that matter are getting paid less. That's what is Ganesh's observation. Okay, this might be different from different context, but let's assume that this is right for a moment. This is right for a larger majority. Why is that, and is that trend going to change? And I want to add to this. If this trend has to change, how will this trend change?
Thank you, Ganesh, for that question. Very important, I guess. And for a long period of time in my own career, I had this question in my head that why do I get paid less than someone else, right? But then that is where you stop growing. That is what I feel. You stop growing at that point in time. The moment you start comparing your package to someone else, your experience to someone else, your work to someone else, that is where you stop growing. The only person that you need to compare yourself, and this is a this could sound like very philosophical, but this is when you start practicing it, that is where you find the change, the difference in your entire mindset of working as a QA professional. And who said that QA managers getting paid less or QA engineers get paid less, right? If you go into security, I've seen people with just 2 or 3 years of experience getting paid more than a EM in an organization.
Yeah,
So
niche.
you just have to choose the right field to fight, right? And someone told me very long back that they asked me a question that what is the difference between a warrior and a goon? And obviously I did not answer. I did not answer. And then the person said to me that a warrior chooses his battles wisely.
Hmm.
So you choose your field wisely, you choose your domain wisely, you choose your niche wisely, and you work for it, work hard for it, and then these things will be a matter of the past.
Great answer. I think the key point I'll take from here is that you take your shots wisely. I think that's the key point here.
Yeah.
Uh, so my next question to you, Sunit, is about this part, right? One of the biggest challenges QA managers face is getting stakeholder buy-in for our initiatives in general. Okay,
Yeah.
a bit of it you have answered just by changing that you should by saying that you should change it to engineering mindset. Okay, but let's assume that people are not able to change to that mindset. That's not the only solution. Let's not consider that as the only solution. How can they effectively communicate the value of QA to other stakeholders in general? Uh, and this also stems from the fact that one of the persons asked, one of the attendees asked here a question which said about that once the business starts to go downside, the first or one of the first teams to let go of are the QA teams. In typical
Yeah.
organizations, some organizations it's happening, right? So two interlinked questions: how does QA managers or leaders keep communicating their value, keep getting buy-in for their initiatives from non-QA stakeholders to whom they report in general, so that they don't become the first uh, bullet to be shot at? Right, that's how it is.
Yeah. Again, so I don't think they're interlinked questions. First of all, why? Because I'll get to that point, but then I'll break it into two questions, and then probably try to link them back. So
Yeah.
the first part of the question is that how do we start communicating our value to the leadership or the business accountability? How do we drive business accountability and make them more serious about what we are doing, right? Um, what I used to do in the past, we used to write a lot of swanky emails, rejection, build rejection, and all that.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm not going to send it live, and this is how I show you value, and raise these bugs, and end of the day, and wait until 11 o'clock. These are all naive things that I used to do, and I'm frankly admitting to it. A lot of people don't.
Correct.
Wait until the clock strikes 11, and then I drop the email. That's the best thing to do, right? That's how I drive value. But that's not how it actually works. And I learned it very hard, a very hard way. So the only way to drive value to your business is, if you, let's say, if you're a QA manager or leader or a tech lead, right? The first thing that starts with that justification or acceptance is within yourself. How open yourself you are to your team members' ideas, right? If someone comes to your team, to you, saying that, okay, Ashutosh, I want to try this up, and I don't know where it goes. I don't know what is the outcome of this POC, but I want to try this particular item, right? I want to try this, and it might take some considerable time from the sprint. I might not be able to deliver some of the tasks. What would be your,
Yeah.
as a lead, like tech lead, what would be your idea? What would be your reaction to it? The first reaction of 90%, I'm not saying, I'm not judging it, but most of the people at tech lead level, right, they would, I think they would say, I'd rather try to break it. So some of them would say straight away, no, don't do it right now. Maybe the next sprint, or
Yeah.
maybe the next sprint, right? Before even contemplating an answer within themselves, their first instinct would be to say no. And please understand, these are the people who have gone up to become leaders now. So leadership at scale happens from one to 100 goes from one, right? If you as a lead are not able to accept to the idea of coming into you, how would someone who
Mm.
has gone through that same phase accept it for yourself, for you? That's the first thing that you need to do is change your own understanding of justification or engineering ideas. That's the first thing that you need to do. Build it in yourself, right? The second thing that I see is a lot of QA leaders. So there is a very recent example in one of my recent organizations. One of my leaders, like my skip level, he came to me and he asked that, Sunit, I want a holistic view of quality of the organization,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
anywhere you go, they will tell you that quality is a subjective item. It cannot be really
Yeah.
measured,
Yeah.
right? It can't be measured. For me, quality of a cloth might be different. For you, it will be different. But
Or
how do you
the
put
enterprise
the particular metrics for him to
metrics. Yeah.
understand it clearly?
Correct.
And that is when I started brainstorming. So I came up with
Mm.
metrics like test case efficiency,
Mm.
defect leakage, uh, defect density, all these metrics. And when I started reviewing them with him, he said,
Yeah.
I don't understand these metrics.
Yeah.
So I had to shift gears. I had to shift understanding of what he expects from me, what he
Mm.
understands from quality.
Mm.
So once you start doing that, you will understand that all these metrics are things of the past now. A lot of people don't really track these metrics. NPS has come in,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
NPS has come in.
Yeah.
That's another very good metric to track. But none of the QA managers or QA leads, they actually have any foresight of what is the NPS score, and it is talked about in the
Correct.
town
Correct.
halls,
I agree with you. Yeah.
right? So when you start justifying your idea to someone, to managers, to anyone, first try to drive the outcome and the metric along with
Mm.
it.
Correct.
If you're going to sell it to someone, you need to talk to them in their language.
I agree.
That's called the business language. So you start
Correct.
talking in the business language, and you will be able to sell it easier.
Oh, makes sense. That makes 100% sense. And that's the fundamental principle of communication, also, right? You communicate in a language on which your receiver will understand. You can't communicate in a language which you speak, right? So if I am speaking English
Absolutely.
and you understand Hindi, then I can't be speaking to you in English because you don't understand that language at all. So I think that's a
Yes.
great point,
Yes. Yes.
and that could be the key takeaway from this question, which I can take. I have a very lovely question, okay, from Ravi Chand. This is on on chat. Okay, I'm putting it here. He says, "Hi, boss. Great to hear from you. My question is, how exactly you manage your relationship with your immediate supervisors, and what are the boundaries in this long journey? So, because it's a long journey, right? And certain times the boundaries get blurred. Okay, you get too friendly or you get too professional. So, how do you maintain that boundaries, and how do you manage that relationship? I think that's a very lovely question.
Absolutely. I mean, probably one of the most intriguing questions that I've had come across in any of
Yeah,
my conversations ever. Um, See, we have to understand every human and every individual that you're working, either working or not working, like in personal and professional life, they all have different attributes, right?
correct,
And if you want to build a relationship with any of those people that you are interacting with,
correct.
before setting up boundaries, you need to understand those attributes. Do you agree with those attributes or not?
Hmm.
First, there comes acceptance.
Hmm.
Before building a relationship, first comes acceptance. That's the basic human need. If you don't accept a person or his attributes, whatever they may be, I like the way he lies. There's a song, I guess, like that. But if you do that, you have that acceptance, then you start building boundaries. That okay, to what extent do I let him exploit that boundary between him and me or her and me? So that's how you start doing it. Boundaries are not something, they're not metrics. They are totally
Hmm.
subjective. They can't be measured.
Hmm.
And the utmost important thing after you have evaluated all of that is respect, because
Correct,
it is a two-way street. You
correct,
can't get respect if you don't you can't get respect if you don't give out respect. So if you have respect for the work that you've done, so there is one uh, very good lesson that my mom and my father taught me is that uh, if you don't respect people's work, you will never grow.
correct.
If you think that you're the one who's doing all the work and you're the one who's doing all the hard work,
Yeah,
then you will never grow.
correct,
So start respecting other people's work, and that's how you start defining your boundaries, and that's how you start making that relationship more stronger. And you can go one level deeper, and get I don't know, collaborative, joking or whatever level you want to go. That's how you start doing. I
got
hope
it.
that answers your question.
Yeah, makes sense. Another great question. This is from Trupti. Okay, Trupti Bose, who's a manager at Axeler and Pune. Uh, as a QA leader, how do you strategize, or how do you, let's say, not even, let's not put the word strategize here. How do you plan continuous learning and upskilling for the QA team so that they're ready for new complex projects and faster professional growth of the team? Given the constraint that our project deadlines are always now shrinking, we have shitloads of work with us, right? So, how do you foster this continuous learning for them to be ready for future?
Great question, Tinky. And this is why this is important is because what I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say here right now might sound alarming. Might people might not want to work with me anymore. Well, the way I solved it, by the way, in Bharat, and I thought that. So I tried this same activity, tried to upskill my team in extra much in my previous organization. I didn't want to take the name, but yeah, they needed a lot of upskilling, not just QA team members, but also devs, DevOps, right? Basic understanding of some of the critical items were missing, and I wanted them to know. I tried to align in sessions with them, give sessions myself, like give them Udemy tutorials and whatever, right? What all and what not. I tried everything. What I figured out was in that journey of implementing this for my team, what I figured out later on was that one thing I was missing, one thing I did not account for, and that was intent. I did not account for the intent of the people to actually learn and grow themselves.
Yeah,
Like, and there is no way. And at the point in time when I joined Bharat, I had no, at least I do not have any way to measure the intent of people. I don't know if someone has it. Let me know. I've never tried it, also, but intent is something that you cannot measure. That's what I believe, right? You can easily fake intent. But so what I did at Bharat Pay, I did not foster any culture. I just added it to the KRAs of individual QA team members. So what I did was I added it to the OKR goals of the QA team members, and I gave 10% weightage to self learning. And the only objective was that whatever you learn at the end of the year, it should have a valid certificate, which is recognized by online any other platforms, either Coursera or Udemy or whatever. And whatever you learn, you must implement one project with that. So that's what I did, and
Got it.
it has worked out wonders. So I tried teaching them API testing, started giving sessions. It went
Mm.
boring. I could not. I'm not a very good teacher, so I could not make them understand entire concepts. But then when this drive came to them, that okay, this is aligned to my KRAs and is for my own growth. This is
Got
not
it.
something that I'm going to benefit the company with.
Mm.
So they started doing it themselves, and they started sharing me, asking me, Sunit, aur kya karna hai? What do you think I should do? Should I learn automation? Should I learn security? Should I learn performance?
Mm.
And things just went exponentially towards the target that we wanted to achieve. I hope that.
Got it. Now I have one more interesting question, and this must be a question of a lot of people who are here who are not here in general. Uh, After 10 years of experience in manual and API testing, I am considering transitioning to automation. As a QA manager, would it be wise to start learning automation now, despite the time investment required? How can I efficiently make this transition? And that's a question which I'm hearing from a lot of people now when I talk to testers in general. They've spent around a decade or more in the industry, largely
Hmm.
revolving around functional testing, uh, but not so much of exposure to automation testing as such. So this is not just Ashok Amit's question. This is a question of a lot of people which I have interacted with in
Yeah,
recent times. Yeah. So
I
what is
agree.
your take on this? Yeah.
Um, uh, Again, my take on this is very. If you ask me, I have a very stumped take on this, but I try to keep it as uh, in the most limited fashion that I can put it. So if you have spent an X, I'm not saying, I'm not putting a number to it. Put it yourself. If you have put like X years in any domain, right, and there has been some reason or the other that you have not upskilled yourself, or some reason or the other that you might not. It could be that automation does not entice you. It did not entice me in the first 2, 3 years of my career,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So figure out for yourself first whether you really want to do automation to just stay relevant to the industry, or if there is some other calling card that you have, right? First,
Yeah.
figure that out. Don't just jump. Don't. I'll suggest that don't jump right into it. There are much more credible things, more business valued things that you
Yeah.
can do, that you can learn, and probably implement as well, right? For your organization and even for your organization. I'm not sure. If I'm not sure, if I'm not wrong, this question was from someone from TBO. So let's say
Yeah.
TBO does not have a security tester. Why don't you learn Python?
Correct.
That's easier to start. Everyone knows that's easier to start. Learn
Yeah.
Python.
I think that's a
Do a
very
security testing.
I, that's a very important part that you understand the skill gap versus the requirement mapping in your organization, right? And you might not just be, and automation might not be the straightforward way. You might become a great performance tester, you might become a great security tester, you might become a great
Yeah,
accessibility tester, for instance.
yeah,
So I think that can give the
absolutely,
wings. Yeah, great point. I think that's a
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we don't just don't. The problem with the testers in the industry is that what I've seen, and probably at some point in time, I was also doing it. I was at once I was desperate to learn Python.
yeah.
So desperate that I did 2 or 3 courses and I still can't figure it out. but and it's because I wanted to learn a lot of R programming, and then I wanted to get into data analysis and all that. But then I figured out that I'm just wasting my time doing it because I'm not gaining any benefit to
Yeah,
my
I get a point.
organization and to myself.
I think that's not just for testers, Sunit. I would say as humans, we've been programmed to think in a certain way, and we've been thinking in a certain way, and at times it's just thinking in a non-linear way, which gets to solve a problem. But there are a lot of questions coming in. Let's take them quickly and answer them as quickly as we can. This is a question
So
from our common friend, Ranish. I see a trend happening. Testers as a team are reporting to dev managers, and it seems to management QA leaders or managers are not required. How do you see impact on this? Specific to this question, of course, we have talked about again. The light is gone, so we'll switch off cameras for some time so that we don't look dark. So this is Ranish's question again. I'll repeat this I see a trend happening. Testers in a team are reporting to dev managers, and it seems to management that QA leaders or managers are not required. How do you see the impact of this? And what's your take on showing management the value of a QA manager?
Okay. I've had this question a lot of times, and I said in the start of the call as well that I don't call my QA team EMs as QA EMs or quality assurance managers. They're all EMs. They're all senior engineering managers. They're all like tech leads. They're not
Yeah,
QA leads. I've stopped calling them.
yeah,
The moment you start doing that, this fact will stop. First of all, I don't think it should hurt you. Why?
yeah,
Because a lot of the testers in the industry learn tech implementation via devs.
yeah,
How a certain product, feature, or code has been implemented. Most of it comes from the devs. So this, I don't feel like that this should be anywhere bothering you. Why? Because the shift that we spoke about in the starting of the call, right? The shift has also been in saving costs,
correct.
correct? And companies will just find ways to curtail costs and keep them more, I don't know, market agnostic to deliver as much as they can to keep the cost under wraps to increase their margins. So these things they keep happening, right? What is important is as a tester, I was having this conversation with them. As a tester, how confident are you of your work or your craft? Even as a tester, when you're a tester, can you at the end of a sprint can you measure your own performance? Can you do that? Do you do that? No, nobody does it. Does anyone? I've not seen anyone coming to me and saying Sunat, मैंने पिछले 6 महीने में या 3 महीने में or in the last 3 months what I've done is I've uh, I've raised 100 API tests, prevented 100 API bugs. I've prevented maybe 90 or 50 integration issues from leaking to production, right? That this is personal efficiency. This is basic personal efficiency. If you start doing that, it doesn't matter who you report to. People will see value in it. People will see value. The people will entertain your views. They will entertain your perspective of quality. They will no need for having a QA EM or reporting a QA EM for that matter.
Yeah.
This is the actual metric that you want to move.
Got it. Got it. Very interesting. I'll not take this typical questions right now. I'll take something else. I'll take three, four more questions before we end this. Okay. Uh, uh, this is a question, but I'll try and change this. Okay. Today in today's day and age, a lot of testers have this query in their heads, right? Should we take the test architect way or should they take the leadership way? So how do they choose that? Which career track should they take? And how do the two roles collaborate well with each other? Two distinctly interlinked questions, but not quite in that sense.
I'll try to do justice to that question. This is a very intriguing question, very difficult to answer, I guess. Why? Because at least at my level, why? Because I've never met a test architect. Because I've always worked
Yeah.
in startup ecosystem, and we never had the liberty of having a test architect separately,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know how the KRA. What is the function of a test architect? Is it to just keep running the framework or add new capabilities to the framework? Because that is something that my QA team also does.
I think in that case, since if there's if you haven't worked so much, I think let's avoid skip this question for now because otherwise
Yeah.
we might just end up saying incorrect
Yes.
things and which might lead people in the wrong direction. So,
Right.
uh, so okay, Alan has been asking this question for quite some time, so I'll quickly take this. How do you see QA companies QA when companies are adapting methodologies of devs doing QA in the name of shift left? So uh, obviously QA the when companies are adopting methodology of devs doing QA in the name of shift.
Basically,
I
you
think
want to ask
he's trying to understand.
how are devs adopting to the testing methodologies or to improve their code? Is that the question?
Correct, 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 correct,
That's a
correct.
very
Something
valid
like that.
question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very valid question. And everyone in your QA teams or whether you're individual contributing or you are a manager or a lead, I think this is the way in the future. This is going to happen. It is
Hmm.
already happening in a lot of other organizations, right? But this is the way of the future, in at least in the startups, where people start taking accountability and driving it across the pods, across the development cycle. Every stakeholder in the development cycle has some level of ownership of quality. Uh, Whether it is a product manager, whether it's a designer, whether it's the QA, whether it's the dev, whether even if it is a DevOps, right? The DevOps ensures configurations are tested and they're easily deployable or whatever, and reusable by infrastructure as code. Devs, they ensure that whatever piece of code they have added, they don't introduce regressions. How do they do that? Either do it via some level of unit tests or some integration tests by doing it shift left or deploying it in a different environment for themselves in their environment, whatever. They're doing it already. There is a shift that is going to happen, right? As QAs, I think there are better things to do, not just write test cases and not just evaluate test cases for someone else or automate them. There are better things to do, as I said in the starting of the call. Yes, definitely there's a huge shift that is coming, and we all have to be prepared for it.
Got it. Understood. I think I'm ready. What do you think about how? There's a question from Mrigank. Okay, I think it went somewhere. Let me just find this. So I'll take 30 seconds to find this question. I think I'll just read this out. The question is, okay, yeah. What do you think about minimalist approach to testing? So rather than creating heavy frameworks or bigger test strategies, having a minimalistic approach, like we always, as QA teams, we don't want to leak any bugs. We want to have an n cross n metrics to do everything right, and but that is not possible. So we try and still cover very exhaustive testing in our plans. But what's your take to minimalistic approach? Is it good, bad? When should we take such kind of an approach?
I think that's a great approach to have. I mean, if you can afford to keep it, the problem with minimalistic approach is that it's not scalable. You can't scale with minimalistic approach. So for example, very
Yeah,
quick example that we give. There has been again there has been a huge shift from being monolithic systems to microservices, right? So that if the scope of the application breaks down into different microservices, the test scope is also getting minimal. You're not testing the entire fleet of products or entire microservices present in the system. You're just testing whatever changes are relevant or local to the microservice. Right? But the problem is the more testers you add, the more tasks you take. The risk-based testing kind of dilutes. The minimalistic approach kind of dilutes. It works very good when the team size is not that much. The number of
correct,
changes that are coming in are not that much.
correct.
So you can do minimalistic if your company allows it, your workflow allows it. Definitely go ahead and do it.
Got it. Thank you. I have one more question on. Okay, yeah. I think this is a question which will not come very often, but I think we should attempt this in the session. Is like you said, okay, picture your role as an engineering manager, not just as a QA manager. Now, tomorrow you evolve so greatly that you start leading dev teams also. But how does a QA manager, who's by design a QA manager, title is engineering manager, let's say, lead a dev team? And it's not just the tech part; it's a lot of skills other than the tech skills here, right? So how can this happen if you can assess this part?
Well, you're not a QA manager anymore. Well, like, you will not be a QA manager if you start leading a development team.
The
I mean,
question here
you
is
will just you'll
how
be
do
a tech manager.
yeah, how to lead a
You
dev
will
team with
be.
a QA background? How to lead a dev team with a QA background? That's the question.
That's what I'm saying. You will not have a QA background in case you start. So once you have that understanding in your head, or your organization has that understanding that you are a technology manager
Correct.
whose primary agenda is right now to manage
Hmm.
quality engineering initiatives.
Hmm.
Right? You will not be a QA manager anymore. Then that will be a thing of the past. But hypothetically, and I've seen good success stories. I've seen people getting to CTO level and VP level in development and all that. But let's just call it. I would like this industry to have another shift, and let's just start calling ourselves as engineers. Right? Stop calling engineers in quality or quality engineers, whatever. I mean, technologists, things like that. But yeah, so that question is very valid. How do you do that? Depends entirely in which team you are in. what kind of team you're working with. Are you working with the front end team? Do you have expertise in front end? Are you good with React, JS, Angular, whatever? Uh, Other than that, how good are you at program management? How good are you at stakeholder management? How good are you at living with ambiguity? How good are you
Correct.
with humility? How respectful you are of others? These are some of the skills that a manager should have, and these are all the skills that I mentioned. By the way, apart from tech skills that I mentioned, have nothing to do with tech. They're all people skills, like interpersonal skills or your own skills that you will own. Whether you are able to drive growth, whether you're able to connect with each other, are you a good communicator or not? That's how you drive the engineering team. Any engineering team, it will not matter whether it is dev or QA. And the good part of working in a startup environment as a manager is that you have a lot of these cross collaborative
Yeah.
projects
Yeah.
which work very closely. So people working in startup for a long time at a manager level with the right set of people around them will never have that doubt of leading another team of developers or DevOps in this. So for example, right now I am not just leading quality assurance or quality engineering initiatives. I'm also leading the security initiatives of BharatPe. I'm also leading the scalability initiatives. I'm also leading the this uptime and availability metrics, right? And all these things are being kind of percolated into engineering managers and devs and SDET1s, SD1s. So there is a mixed
Yeah.
bag. So I don't feel underconfident that I don't know how to measure uptime of a system.
Got it. Understood. I think I'll take the last two questions. If there's an interesting question here. There are a lot of questions have come in, so I might be missing. Okay, AI question is there, which I'll take anyways in the end. A lot of productive issues. This is. I think this
Someone
talk.
asked that the QA roles are getting eliminated or something.
I think that we have spoken. Let's but okay, yeah. This question I think must be a question for a lot of people, and in that sense, and not just. And let's address it at a larger level. Okay, need some guidance analysis on why careers get stuck at a specific role and why people are not able to see the next step in career. Of course, when they see the step, when they see where they want to, what's the next step, they take the respective directions there. But at a lot of times, people are not aware about what's the next step in store for them. So how do they see those steps which are lying ahead for them? At times, once you see a guiding step, you work towards that, which is what we have discussed over the last hour or
Yeah.
so. But at times, people are not able to see or visualize the next step. How does that happen?
I mean, a lot of people think like that. A lot of people feel that, and I've had a lot of deep conversations around it, including with myself. So that comes with a lot of introspection. So the answer that I'm going to give is actually driven from a lot of introspection that I've actually had in my mind, right? Uh, during, in the past, as a QA manager that I was working in one of the organizations, I knew I knew what the next step is in that organization. I become a senior QA manager.
Correct.
But the question in my head was, do I really want to be a senior QA manager? Or do I want to be a product manager? Or do I want to be, I don't know, I want to go into DevOps because that role enticed me, have always enticed me. Because I link it directly to reliability and performance and everything. So that is another very niche and curious area for me. So that at that point in time, the guidance was not at all available, right? So I did not know what step to take at the point in time. So what I started doing was I started not just evaluating, but I started contributing as that role. So for example, in Paytm, I also contributed as a product manager. I was lucky. Not, a lot of people do not probably get that chance, but I
Correct.
started contributing as a product manager also. I started contributing to some level as a DevOps engineer who at least takes care of the releases for that matter. Whatever releases is going through, I just raised my hand and I said, I'm going to take the responsibility of the release management. and the servers that are going to get deployed at the time. So I learned from that, and then that's where I started getting my true knowledge. What I'm trying to say is that when you stuck with some at a certain level in your career, not just in your career, in your life also, the best thing, the best thing that you can do, uh, and we can talk in detail about it as well. The best thing that you can do is put your best foot forward in the top three or two items that you think are right for you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
Without doing that, if you don't put the best thing for your best foot forward and just lean on and jump to that direction, just take that plunge. If you don't do that, you will be stuck. I
I
saw
get your
this
point.
famous reel that when you are confused about whether I should jump off the building or not, that is exactly when you should
The
jump.
time you should jump. Yeah, that's the
So
point. Yeah.
just take that jump, take that leap, then only you will get to know what is your calling.
Got it. Okay. Before I take the last question, just a word to our attendees. We have plugged the banner for sharing your feedback. Please start putting your feedback. This your feedback helps us understand that what are you liking, what are you not liking, what do you want to hear from us. And I think this will be equally valuable for Sunit also. So please start filling your feedback. More it comes, more we understand what you want to take in. Okay. Uh, Last question, okay, Sunit, which is the question which I'm asking everybody right now. Okay, which I've been asking for 1 year now, is how do you see QA leaders, QA as a function, testing as a function, evolving in the age of AI? At now, with AI being AI also evolving at a faster pace, not just generative AI. So, how do you see the roles, the function evolving in today's age of AI?
Okay, a lot of people I've heard talking about is especially about AI is they do a lot of predictions about AI, but I strongly feel that this AI thing is still very very new. Although they are doing wonders in whatever they're doing right now, right? I mean, they're solving some immensely amazing use cases out there, right? But to have adoption of a technology and to have understanding of it and to know about it are three or four different things altogether. We have seen what happened with Web3. We've seen what happened with HTML5 for that matter. We see when HTML5 came in, everyone said mobile apps are dead, right? When Web3 came in, they said normal internet is dead.
Yeah.
When
No, but
I don't
this
know
is, but
when robotics came in, we
no,
said all household jobs are dead.
whatever, but I disagree with you humbly here. This is not
Yeah,
similar to what we saw at Web3. This is way bigger. That option is a lot more. This is more. This is getting more widespread than what Web3 was or what HTML5 was.
absolutely. It is getting there. I'm not saying. See, the curve might be steeper. I'm not denying it.
Correct.
I'm not denying the fact that it is not steeper or the adoption is not getting happening faster than other technologies are happening, right? But then what I'm trying to solely suggest or purely suggest here is that before evaluating your options as a QA or an engineer, first identify the problem statement that you would want to solve with this technology,
Yeah,
right? Just don't start jumping towards it.
that is true.
If you don't, matlab, that will be another. So there is a very fine, there's a very important item that happens a very important process that happens in your head, the brain does to you, and that's called synaptic pruning. And what it does basically, essentially, is that whatever you learn, if you don't use it for a long time, the
Hmm.
brain starts forgetting it. Then what's
Yeah,
the point of
that
capturing all that RAM in your head? So start evaluating AI, start evaluating all these new technologies that are coming in, and then evaluate your use cases, your whether you're doing it only for a scholarly type attribution, do you
yeah.
want to just learn more about it, then go ahead and do it, plunge into it. But if you want to solve a problem, then I would suggest that you would first, a lot of these players that are selling AI products are not actually AI as well. We have talked about it in the past.
Yeah, that is true.
The largest problem, the largest thing that we saw recent news that was that Amazon store, the walk-in store that Amazon had actually 1,000 Indian workers looking at cameras of people and making sure the checkout was right. There was no AI there.
No, that is true.
let's
No,
not Listen,
yeah,
what I'm trying to say is that you understand and evaluate your situation in your
correct.
organization. You're trying to solve the problem. Go ahead and look into it. And AI is going to definitely change landscape. So did blockchain, so did Web3, so did HTML5 or any other new
Yeah, that is
technology that came in. It is here to change the landscape.
Yeah.
right? So did CDMA, mobile phones, GSM phones, and CDMA phones.
Yeah,
Everything,
yeah.
every tech disrupts. But where is CDMA right now?
Got it. Understood. Understood. I think with that we can end this here. We're just about an hour mark, and I know there's a lot of questions which you couldn't take. So this is active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to him there, and he'll be happy to help you there. Uh, so first of all, thank you for doing this, and I think your passion for your craft is visible when you answer, and you have answered them unapologetically as you as authentic as possible. And
Thank you.
thank you to
Thank
all
you.
of you for tuning into this session. We hope that it created that impact in you. You had some key takeaways from this session, and please fill in the feedback form like I mentioned earlier. This helps us to understand what you are liking, what you are not liking, and how do we modify our offerings accordingly. And to Sunit also to understand that what he can improvise in general. And like I always say that if you attend sessions at 10 p.m. in the night in India, you have taken that first step to upskill. Please keep this upskilling going. This can happen through anything. This can happen through a YouTube. It can happen through a blog. Can happen through a chat GPT prompt. It can happen through a book. It can happen through a course. But please keep upskilling. This is a brutal market. This is a brutal world. Only upskilling will make us. Will only upskilling will keep us going. So with that, I'll end this here. And once again, thank you to all of you for joining, and thank you Sunit for doing
Thank
this
you,
for
guys.
us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for this opportunity. Bye, guys.
Bye.